Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi, my name is Aarti and today I'm going to be talking about the unnecessity of the gluten-free diet. A few years ago, if someone were to tell you to stay away from whole grains and whole wheats because it's potentially dangerous, you probably wouldn't believe them. However, in the world today, we are constantly being challenged on what's good for us and what's not good for us. There's always new diets and new fads coming up that are trying to change our perspective, and what we know is already true is always being challenged. What's bad for us, what's good for us, what's dangerous, and what's not dangerous is always being put in perspective again. And this brings us to a new popular diet that has been recently popular in the last 5 to 10 years, and that's the gluten-free diet. You probably have heard about it because it's everywhere, from restaurants and their menus. Now restaurants are starting to have gluten-free options. And you also probably see it in grocery stores. There's a lot of gluten-free products, and I mean, you're probably seeing it also on TV too, with commercials. There's also gluten-free ads for things like protein bars, the protein bars. However, many celebrities have endorsed this by picking up the gluten-free lifestyle, and also many manufacturers have taken advantage of this by putting in more gluten-free products on the market. Luckily for them, many people have fallen for this little trick without really knowing what gluten is. Gluten is a protein that you can find in rye, barley, and wheat, and it's not as bad for you as you may think. Actually, the gluten-free diet is completely unnecessary if you don't have an intolerance to gluten. Also, it can rid your body from essential nutrients that you would get in gluten products. And lastly, it doesn't offer any health or weight loss benefits. I first want to talk about who needs a gluten-free diet. Certain people do need gluten-free diets. The gluten-free diet was actually made for people with celiac disease. Celiac disease is an abnormal immune response to gluten. When gluten is in their body, they have stomach pain, irritable bowel syndrome, digestion problems, and worse. So for these people, it's actually really important and necessary to avoid gluten. However, this isn't the same for the rest of us. Gluten means glue in Latin, and what happens is when you eat gluten, it can stick to the body of the stomach a little bit longer. For people with celiac disease, this can be extremely painful. However, for people without celiac disease, this can just be a normal process. 1% of people have celiac disease, so we really shouldn't be worried if we're eating things with gluten in it. However, too much of a good thing is a problem. If you eat a whole pizza, it's probably going to be a little bit hard on your stomach. However, 1 or 2 slices probably won't be that bad for you if you don't have celiac disease. Now, how do you know if you have a gluten intolerance? Maybe you are feeling the symptoms of celiac disease and don't know if you're one of the few. The best thing to do is to see a dietitian and to find out what's the problem. Taking out gluten isn't always the best way to fix your problem. Sometimes it's adding fiber, sometimes it's taking another dietary supplement. Ridding this protein that's found in so many food groups isn't always the way to go. See, gluten, though it does not have any nutritional benefits, is found in a lot of things that do have nutrients. Ridding your body from gluten can be extremely harmful for you. Gluten is found in things like oats, cereals, and wheats. And these are things that we need on a daily basis for our health. Studies show that whole grains as a part of a healthy diet may help lower the risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some forms of cancer. And half of all carbohydrates in diets come from whole grains. This is from the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. As we know, carbohydrates are a good source of energy, and if we don't get the recommended amounts of carbohydrates each day, we're going to feel like restless and tired. And also, whole grains are a really essential part of our diet. If we take out whole grains, we're not going to have as much nutrients, fiber, protein, minerals, and vitamins that we usually have in our diet. So it's never good to take out a food group if you don't need to. The best thing to do is to portion your meals and to have a little bit of everything. Lean meats, fruits, vegetables, and a little bit of every food group. That would be the best thing to do for a proper and healthy diet. The last thing I want to talk about is that gluten-free foods is not going to make you healthier, and it's definitely not going to make you lose weight. When we see gluten-free, we associate it the same way that we associate fat-free or sugar-free. We think it's going to be better for us, and we think it's going to help us shed those extra calories. However, this is a false conception. Gluten-free isn't going to help you lose weight. Like I said before, gluten means glue in Latin, and that same thing is applied when we're binding foods together. Gluten is used to help bind foods together. So in a pretzel, let's say that it's 110 calories with gluten, and it's 1 gram of fat. Without gluten, you're going to have to use more fat and sugar to bind that same pretzel. So it's going to be triple the calories. It's going to be 104. It's going to be nearly double. It's going to be like 140 calories, and it's going to be triple the fat. It's going to be 6 grams of fat, just because you need those sugar and fat molecules to bind that pretzel. So what we see is we're eating double the calories, and it's at double the price. Manufacturers have really taken advantage of the gluten-free market, and they have put in gluten-free products in things that we wouldn't expect gluten to be in, like toothpaste, alcohol, soy sauce, and things of that sort. Of course, they're taking advantage of the fact that you think it's going to be healthier for you just because of the label. Also, because you're not having any gluten in gluten-free diet, you're also taking out the fiber. We get a lot of fiber in whole wheats and grains, and without that fiber, you're going to be hungrier. So what it does is it makes you spend more money because you're going to be having to get more food, and it makes you eat more. In response, you're not going to be the same weight. You're probably actually going to gain weight instead of lose weight. In conclusion, the best thing to do to look and feel healthier is to just be on a proper diet and have proper exercise. It's never good to take away a whole food group from your diet. And the best thing to do, like I said before, is just have representatives of each food group and to have proper servings of each. There's always going to be new diets and new things that come up, and the best thing to do is to not always get caught up in the fad. The best thing to do is just keep it simple and stick to what you know. Thank you.
All right, I thought that you did a good job at the beginning of the speech trying to set up this as a controversy and not just an informative speech about this sort of dietary change that people are making. And I think you need to do a little bit more of that throughout the presentation. As you got to the third point, I think you came back to that idea again. One of the things that might illustrate this, in addition to the fact that there are gluten-free products being provided, is that you might show the proportion of the gluten-free products that are provided is disproportionate to the population that suffers from the celiac disease. You do have your claim in the opening part of the speech, but it's kind of buried after the introduction. You know, in the newspaper business, you know, they always accused the writers of burying the lead. You know, here's the main point that you're trying to make, but you've got it hidden there in the opening of the speech. And I think that you do that also. Because I've seen your outline and we talked about it a little bit, I heard it when it finally came up, but I don't know that anybody else would be able to pick it out and say that's clearly what the point of the argument is. And the same thing with the preview. I heard a preview, and I think that, you know, if somebody was paying close attention, they would figure out that that's the structure of the speech that you're going to follow. Listening is different. People don't process information the same way. And so if it was in an essay and you were looking at that, people would be able to figure it out. You have to draw them a picture a little bit. And I'm not saying that you necessarily have to say, okay, now you dummies, here's your preview. But you do need to give us a sense of, all right, so here's how we're going to travel this road. And I'm first going to do this, and so on. And it probably wouldn't hurt in the body of the speech to occasionally use those numerical signposts. Because again, casual listeners, if they are not focused on what you're talking about, it'll all sound like it's running together. You need the structure there to help us remember the information that you're presenting. I thought it was organized in the presentation. Like I said, I think you need to label those secondary points a little bit more while you're speaking. I think the thing that helps your credibility the most is the fact that you speak to us for the most part. You're not overly dependent on the script. You're trying to talk to us. You seem to have a good grasp of what the argument is that you're making, and I think that that helps quite a bit. You do need a little bit more information in some places because you give us a lot of hypotheticals, and there's some conclusionary statements about the way people are pursuing these diets, and we need some information to suggest that that is really what's going on, that people are jumping on gluten-free. The fact that they have gluten-free options on the menu at a restaurant, well, doesn't that simply mean that the restaurant is trying to take into consideration their customers who might have celiacs? Or does it mean that they're trying to cater to people who think that they're doing something healthy for themselves and they're just using it as a marketing strategy? I don't know which it is, and I mean, you make the inference that it's really people just trying to market here. Well, what reason do you have to believe that it's that? Is it like, you know, again, is it disproportionate? Is it the way it's presented? Maybe it's the way it's sold. Maybe there are experts who've talked about this and talk about how we're so obsessed with trying to control our weights and diets and that sort of thing that people, you know, latch on to everything that's going on. Then I think that would be the kind of thing that you could add to the speech. Let's see. Oh, there are a couple of places where there's general reference to background studies. I think you need to be more specific than that, rather than just giving us kind of a conclusion or a paraphrase of what somebody has said. So there is information in the speech, but I'm not sure that it's always being cited as consistently as it needs to be. And of course, it's a little bit over time. Like I said, we won't panic about that today. We'll panic about that next time.